The nonlinear narrative goes back and forth and often looks at it entirely from the perspective of the victims. The year is 1991, and in the Oxford apartment building in Milwaukee, the tenant of 212 Glenda Cleveland, Emmy Winner Niecy Nash, is deeply concerned about the suspicious activities of her next-door neighbor Jeffrey Dahmer. Peeking from the peephole of her door, Glenda sees Dahmer coming to his apartment with a young African-American man. We see him walking into a gay bar and picking up the man named Tracy Edwards, Sean J. Brown, with the promise of paying him money in exchange for his pictures being clicked. Tracy goes to Dahmer's apartment and soon discovers his true sinister intention. He still manages to find an opportunity to overpower Dahmer and escape. Scared and anxious, Tracy comes across police officers John Balsazak, Scott Michael Morgan, and Joseph T. Gabrish, Matthew Allen, and leads them to Dahmer's apartment. This eventually results in Dahmer's arrest, and the police finding further disturbing things like human remains, several heads in the freezer, 2 skulls, and a huge drum containing different bodies decomposing in acid. We get a peek at Dahmer's odd childhood in Ohio and the dysfunctional relationship he shares with his parents Lionel, Josh Bratton, and Joyce, Savannah Brown. He is completely disconnected from his drug addict mother, and the only father-son bonding seems to be dissecting roadkills together. His parents soon get divorced, and Dahmer is left completely alone for a summer in 1978, when he commits his first murder by luring a hitchhiker with the promise of a few beers. The murder is followed by Dahmer dismembering the body, dissolving the flesh in acid, and crushing the bones with a sledgehammer. Lionel, Richard Jenkins, playing an older version, eventually comes back into Dahmer's life with Sherry, Molly Ringwald, who later becomes his stepmother. He enrolls his son at Ohio State University in hopes of a more functional future, and when Dahmer ends up getting expelled from the college, he is sent to the army. 2 years later, being in the army also doesn't work out for Dahmer, and neither does living in Miami, as he can't stand being alone. He comes back to Ohio and eventually relocates to West Allis, Wisconsin with his grandmother. However, he continues to invite trouble by exposing himself in public at a state fair and in turn losing his job as a phlebotomist. His relationship with his grandmother is also made bitter when she finds a male mannequin in his bed and realizes he is using it for sexual purposes. He finds a new hobby in drugging homosexual men and ends up being banned from the bathhouses when he is caught. However, that doesn't stop him, and he continues his vicious acts in classier hotels. His relentless murderous instincts drive him to take more lives at his grandmother's house, and he gets rid of the remains through the pretenses of taxidermy. One of the victims gets accidentally saved by the sudden interference of his grandmother. Dahmer soon gets arrested for molesting a 13-year-old boy, but gets out after spending a year in a correctional facility. When asked to move out from his grandmother's house, he moves into the infamous Oxford apartment where he kills 12 of his victims, including the brother of the boy he had molested before. Upon his arrest, Dahmer confesses to all his crimes and effectively gets life imprisonment. Lionel is devastated, but welcomes the idea of capitalizing on the whole thing by writing a book and making money out of it. Inside the prison, Dahmer starts to receive letters and money from people who worship him as some kind of hero and are drawn to his darkness. Dahmer, turning into this kind of cult and almost celebrity, distresses the victims' families as well as the black inmates of the prison. He gets stabbed by one of those inmates, but soon recovers. Dahmer decides to go through baptism to wash his sins away and be saved by God, which pleases Lionel. Ultimately though, Dahmer meets his doom when he is bludgeoned to death by inmate Christopher Scarver. After the death of Dahmer, Lionel and Joyce get into a legal battle over whether to preserve his brain for further analysis and research, or to destroy it. The verdict goes in Lionel's favor, and to honor Dahmer's wish, it gets destroyed. Glenda pushes for a park in the site of the now destroyed Oxford apartment in memory of the victim, and she declares that she is willing to wait for as long as she is breathing. However, it is revealed in the end credits that no park or memorial was ever built in that location. The biggest question that comes up here is, was justice really served? Considering Dahmer did get arrested and ended up in jail, in broader terms it was. But the amount of endless pain and suffering the families of the victims had to go through indicates otherwise. Because of Dahmer, the people in the Oxford apartment were forever traumatized, and they eventually had to move. Getting brutally murdered in the hand of Scarver, a genuine God-believer black man, does seem like a form of poetic justice though. For the victims' families, knowing Dahmer is not breathing in the world they are living in is a huge relief after all. The primary purpose of any form of art is most definitely creative expression, but when the content is as sensational as Dahmer's story, there lies a certain responsibility. Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan did realize that part completely and managed to make something that raises all the right questions and makes the audience uncomfortable and rightfully angry about the world they are living in, even in the context of modern times.